All right. So welcome, everyone. This is really exciting for us, and we want to thank the Lidditz Library for hosting us. We usually do winter lecture series. I see a lot of familiar faces, so thanks for coming today on a hot day in July, but it's air-conditioned in here, so that's a good thing. My name is Corey Van Broekhoven. I'm the president of the Lidditz Historical Foundation. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Dominish Miller. I am running the Preserving the History of Newberrytown Facebook group, and I'm turning it into a historical society in York County. I'm the Third Circuit Court of Appeal librarian for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, and I'm a Civil War reenactor for the 87th Pennsylvania in my free time.
So you might wonder, where's Newberrytown? Why is there Newberrytown on a... I reached out to Domi months ago and I said, I love what you do. Let's do a combined program where we kind of join forces, Lancaster County, York County, Newberrytown, Lidditz, talk about all that we have in common, get some local historians together from both sides of the river, who both of them sides are here today. And then some. Well, first of all, let me back up. Raise your hand if you're from York County. If you came here from York County, okay. A handful, okay. Raise your hand if you came from Newberrytown. Okay. All right. Good. So all right. Raise your hand if you're from Lancaster County. All right. Wow. All right. And if you're from Lidditz, where are our Lidditz people? All right, great job. So regardless of how far you traveled, thank you so much for being here. At the end of the program, please go up front. There's all kinds of brochures up there. There's postcards, business cards. You can take our quarterly newsletter. They're free. You can take free copies of that and learn a little bit about our historical society, learn more about preserving the history of Newberrytown, the Facebook page Domi runs. And I also run, you'll see that at the end, it's called Remember When in Lidditz, which is like a community history page on Facebook. Also, we have postcards. We have many of you have seen it, we have a clock. I know it's dark right now, but trust me, I'm holding a postcard of a clock right now. It has 50,000 original pieces of wood. It turned 100 last year. That's on display at our museum. And we have extra postcards. If you want to take one, they're free. But it's just one of the many things. So feel free to go up at the table afterwards and help yourself to some handouts. Okay? So again, today, the program that we're here to talk about is the relationship between York County and Lancaster County. Okay? So we're going to learn a little bit about York, a little bit about Lancaster, and of course, I couldn't help myself, some Lidditz history, okay, some Newberrytown history. And at the end of the program, we want to talk local history. We want to talk about where you live. We want to hear more about your area, more about York County, Lancaster. So that's what we're here for. That's what we love to do. So feel free, if you want to stick around, talk more about history. We would love to meet you. So I'm going to turn it over to Dom to kick it off, and we're kind of just going to ping pong back and forth. Oh yeah, that's right. There we go. Hey, okay. I'm fired.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. So this is called the Lancaster and the York County Connection. And when we started this, we were joking that it's our own version of the War of the Roses. So we have the Red Rose City, we have the White Rose City, and you know the connection with the United Kingdom and England and those warring families. And we're here, we're not warring, we want to be sister cities, we want to be sister counties. So if you can go to the next slide, please. We're going to talk about the founding of these counties, and the connection between them is they were founded not that far apart. So Lancaster County was actually founded before York County, and that was in 1729. On September 27, 1777, it was the nation's capital for one day. So congratulations, Lancaster. You were the capital of the United States for one whole day. That's your claim to fame. But you got to be the capital of Pennsylvania from 1799 to 1812. So you got a little longer to be the hub of everything in Pennsylvania. And then we have York County, and they were founded a little later, August 19th, 1749. And the Articles of Confederation were drafted in York County. So that's one of our claims to fame. And we were the nation's capital from September 27th to June 27th, 1777. So we were the nation's capital a little longer than you were, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So we have those connections where we were born very close to each other. We only have a river dividing us, so we really are sister counties.
All right, Lancaster, that means I'm up on the hot seat again here. So some early photographs here. First of all, the top left, provided by Lancaster History, 19th century view of Lancaster City, okay? Below there at the bottom right, I was told, I don't know if this is true, Ben, you probably saw this photo before. This is a early 1800s photograph looking east along West King Street in Lancaster. Many claim that it's the earliest known photograph of Lancaster City, Lancaster County. The slide isn't coming through, but it's supposed to be, I think, 1845, which, again, seems kind of early to me, but, you know.
One of the remarkable things about this photo is it shows the county courthouse in Center Square.
Right, which is now next to Central Market, and, well, that building still stands. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the point here is, early colonial towns, colonial architecture, you had stone, okay, then you went to brick and wood. A lot of our older buildings here in Lidditz, for example, our Mueller House, 1740, if you were to look underneath the siding, you'd find a lot of log. And we're seeing that in both York counties and Lancaster County alone, so similar in architecture.
And then that brings us to this photograph from York. So this was a map that I found, and again, I don't know what's going on with our numbers here, but that was 1852. So at the bottom it says 182, but that should say 1852, and this is a map of York County. It's showing some of the similar architecture between Lancaster and York. The first photography studio was opened in York in 1845 by William Wagner. And you need to know about Glenn Alvin Goodrich if you know about photography in York County. And he was one of the first African-American photographers. And he really made his mark in York County. And there's private collections, and I believe some of his work is now in the Smithsonian. So if you take anything away from this, you know, go look up Glenn Alvin Goodrich on Google tonight and learn about the history of photography and African-American photography in York County. When I was Googling trying to find the oldest known picture in York County, I didn't get very far. But I think an 1852 map is a good start, and it really shows you how the landscape of York County changed, but how similar it was to our sister county in Lancaster. So Native Americans obviously were along the river of the Susquehanna River, and the Susquehanna River got its name from the Susquehannock tribe. And the Susquehannocks moved into the river valley at about 1550. So they were really the first inhabitants of this area, and you have to think about the fact that this was a very fertile area, the river valley, they had access to water, hunting, gathering, and they inhabited not only York County, but they also inhabited Lancaster County. Can you go to the next slide? So there was actually multiple tribes in the area. It wasn't just the Susquehannocks, but there was about 10 tribes between 1650 and 1750 in Lancaster County, and I was able to find this great picture. There's actually a plaque talking about some of the tribes, the Conestoga tribes in Lancaster County. So you can go around Lancaster County and you can see these tributes to the Native Americans in Lancaster County. And then in York, which would be on the next slide, we also had different tribes. It wasn't just the Susquehannocks, but they were one of the most prominent tribes. And in York County, we have the Indian Steps Museum, which is open to the public, and you can go in, and a gentleman converted this home into a working museum. He was going along the river, and he was finding Native American artifacts, and he worked them into the architecture of the building, and he has a gift shop, and you can go on tours, and he has displays, and it's really great to learn about the Native Americans that settled this area. And if you think about a lot of the town names that we have between York County and Lancaster County, if you think about Conestoga, if you think about the Conewago, those are all coming from the Native American tribes and their names and their language. So the Native Americans had a huge impact on our two counties.
Yeah, and even though the Native Americans really aren't around anymore, there's still, like Dominish said, there's evidence through the names. You see road signs, Indian Village Drive, and just in the Lidditz Springs Park years and years ago, Indian artifacts were found, arrowheads, things like that. And we, in Lidditz, one of our tribes that was mentioned earlier was the Nanticokes, okay? So continuing on here, you can't talk about Lancaster County, and we'll see York County, and also Lidditz without talking about Nicholas von Zinzendorf here, early Moravian life, okay? Now, he was what's considered to be the founding of the Moravian faith, which is one of the oldest Protestant denominations out there. We learned through our research that there's actually 2 Moravian churches in York County and 2 in Lancaster County, of course, one here in Lidditz and one in Lancaster. Zinzendorf is buried in Herrnhut, Germany, okay? Oh, all right, good. When all else fails, use good old-fashioned, who needs all this, right? Okay.
Amen.
What's that?
Amen.
Amen, okay. David Tannenberg, who's ever heard of David? I'm sure some of you have. Organ builder, right? Okay, so he was the premier organ builder in America for the colonies during the 18th century. And he died in 1804. We'll learn more about how he died here in a moment. But I might need... Here.
I can do it.
All right, yeah. Let's get rid of this thing. Tannenberg organs, okay? 9 still exist, over 40 that he created. Locally, there's still one at the York Heritage Trust, and that's the picture at the top, well, not top, but yeah, top right, okay? The other 2 are located right here in Lidditz, one in the small chapel and one in Fellowship Hall, okay? So out of those 9 that are still out there around the country, we have 3 right here in central Pennsylvania. So that's pretty neat. If you've never heard one play, it has a really, really unique sound. They're huge. They're very large. Obviously, very expensive to restore. But we're so fortunate to have a few of these organs right here in our area. All right, next slide, please. So, Susquehanna River, a.k.a. a bridge divides us, okay? Connects us, not divides us. Points to ponder here in terms of the Susquehanna River. Consider it is the longest river on the East Coast, and obviously it connects Lancaster to York County. Lancaster County owns the river. Raise your hand if you knew that. Benton, okay, Tom, 1, 2, 3. So apparently if there's a major accident or if something happens, it's Lancaster County's fault. It's our responsibility to take care of it. So who knew? Okay. It's very, very old. It predates the Atlantic Ocean. And time has reduced, as the slide says, the river to shallow conditions. It's the largest unnavigable river in the country, if I'm not mistaken. And if you've ever spent any time on the Susquehanna, you never saw any big, large boats or yachts, okay? Paddle boats and rowboats and things like that. But it's very, very shallow, deep in some areas certainly, but a lot of rocks, therefore very, very dangerous. But that's the Susquehanna River.
Oh, wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. So I mentioned earlier, who owns the Susquehanna River? Well, we learned Lancaster. Little information there. I'm just going to read it from, I guess it's from 1749. What is now the York County was part of Lancaster County. In 1749, York County was established. The official legal document states that the boundary of York County begins on the west bank of the river. This means the entire Susquehanna River that borders on Lancaster and York counties is in Lancaster County, okay? There's more proof there. This has not changed, okay, like I said. So really interesting tidbit there. I didn't know that until we started working on this project. So that was news to me as well. Who knew? All right, you want to jump in?
Sure, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the burning of the Wrightsville Bridge in 1863 during the Civil War. So you can thank York County for the Confederates not coming across the bridge into Lancaster County. As part of the 87th Pennsylvania being a Civil War reenactor, our regiment used to participate in the reenactment of the burning of the Wrightsville Bridge. We don't do that anymore. But we used to do that, and it is something that, it's very local and it's very relevant to our lives today. So you can just think about what life would have been like if we would have let the Confederates cross the bridge and didn't put up a fight. So you're welcome.
By the way, did anyone know just about a week or two ago was Bridge Burning Day? Okay. That's okay, yeah. So that's about what I expected, the amount of hands, right. But yeah, so we just passed that anniversary about a week or two ago. So yeah.
Okay, so who has ridden on the Susquehanna Trail? Raise your hand. The Susquehanna Trail. Yeah? Okay, we're familiar with the Susquehanna Trail? Well, the Susquehanna Trail has a lot to do with the Lincoln Highway, and we actually have two gentlemen here today to talk a little bit more about the Lincoln Highway. So are we going to bring them up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have we have a section on Lincoln Highway. We want to introduce two special guests. First of all, Tom Davidson's here. He's the president of the Lincoln Highway Legacy Association. And Tom, do you just want to stand up and talk just for a minute and just introduce yourself? Because obviously one of the things that connects us is the Lincoln Highway. So,
thank you very much. I just wanted to mention that recently started...
Do you want to come up here so you can be on the live stream? I think people can hear you a little bit better too.
great job. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was recently elected as Pennsylvania Director for the Lincoln Highway Association, and beyond wearing this very nice hat, we have information over here that people that would like to become members of the Lincoln Highway Association, where we work together to preserve and protect the history of this national memorial to Abraham Lincoln. And it established a road from New York City to San Francisco. And one thing we're doing right now in York County is carrying forward the work of this gentleman that will follow me. So if you'd like to learn more about our organization, I'll be available at the end of the presentation.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Tom. We want to also introduce a very special guest while we're talking about the Lincoln Highway section. As you came in this afternoon, you probably saw a Lincoln Highway replica, okay? And the gentleman that we're about to introduce, Ben Weber, spent the past year plus going around to different places, every place where there was an original Lincoln Highway marker in the county. I'll just let him talk. I can't do it. See, look how strong that's actually cement. Like that is, look at that. He ate his Wheaties this morning, but he's going to talk a little bit about it, and I don't know if you want to come in front of the microphone too. You have to hold that while you're talking, Ben.
Okay.
Sorry. No. You set it down, and if you want to talk into the mic, that way we get you on the live stream.
Sounds good. So the Lincoln Highway was set up in the early 1900s, and it was a compilation of various roads, whether good or bad, and some mud tracks across the desert and so forth. And the idea was to get people to be using it so that the funds would become available to improve it. And this was our nation's first transcontinental highway. So this was a big attractor for people to be driving. And it was promoted by a lot of the automotive manufacturing leaders of the time, because they wanted people to buy cars and buy tires and use gasoline. So various attractions were created all along the Lincoln Highway. We have several today in Lancaster County and in York County that you might know of. Anybody here ever hear of the Haynes Shoe House? That was an attraction that was created right along the Lincoln Highway. But there was also the difficulty of getting people to know where the Lincoln Highway was and where it wasn't. So the idea is, let's put some signs out. Well, the signs got to be so difficult to maintain. Let's put up something more permanent. And in 1928, 3,000 of these concrete markers were installed by the Boy Scouts of America. 3,000 of these, not all in Lancaster County. but 3,000 from New York to San Francisco. There were 40 of them, 40 of them that were installed in Lancaster County alone. And somebody made a list, and somebody from the Lincoln Highway Association gave this guy a copy of that list. So now I got to figure out where all these places were, right? So sure, I can figure out some of the street names because they haven't changed, but some of the street names did change. Or there were things like Isaac Weaver's Corner in Mountville near a hedge. That was one of the... All right, the hedge is gone, let me tell you. And I still can't figure out where Isaac Weaver's Corner was. Is this a store? But I found an old log cabin, and I said, oh yeah, that's probably good enough. So there's one of these that are remaining in Lancaster County today. It's in Columbia at 3rd and Chestnut. It's just sitting right there in the sidewalk. You can go up, you can touch it. You can actually measure it, as this guy did. I got my little tape measure. I'm an engineer, so I got my little measurement, drew it up, you know, and took all the dimensions. And then I reached out to a friend of mine, Dan Pratt, and I said, hey, Dan, what do you think about making this out of wood and making it transportable? I'd like to take it to each of the 40 locations. He said, what in the world are you talking about? But he ultimately did it. So then I went and I figured out where each of these 40 locations were, except for Isaac Weaver's Corner. And I came up with this nutty idea where I'd reach out to local historians like Corey Van Broekhoven or Tom Davidson and invite them to come and take a picture with it. And so they would come, and the idea was, when you're going to pose with the replica marker, you put your left elbow on here, your right hand across, and you kick your left foot over like that. Every single person, all 40 people.
He's not kidding. We had about 50 takes till I... Yeah.
And I think if you look at the picture, Corey, you did your right foot across this way.
I still got it wrong.
But I had to step out into traffic to take a picture of Corey, and right there in Paradise is not a good place, so I just let that one slide. But anyway, it was total fun going all the way across the county and picking up all these neat stories about the places where these markers used to be. To try to solve the puzzles was one thing, but then there was these wonderful stories that came out about the Lincoln Highway and about stories that were just so endearing about Lancaster County history and the people who lived here. The best story is about Viola Lawrence. She was a restaurant owner with her husband, Paul Lawrence, over in Gap. Everybody knows where Gap is. It's at the east end, of the Lincoln Highway in Lancaster County. And the Lawrences had a restaurant there for years and years, and they had a marker post right across the street from them that was listed right there in that list that I got from the Lincoln Highway Association. And one day, a black woman came through and said, Mrs. Lawrence, I really like your restaurant. I'd like to work for you here. And she was such a great cook. A lot of people really wanted to come in and taste this great cooking. They got to be fast friends. Paul Lawrence died, but the two of them kept this restaurant going for decades. They used to travel together. And then the black woman, and I'm sorry her name escapes me, but she then went to a retirement home, a nursing home in Columbia. And then every day after she moved there, every day Viola would get in her car and drive the length of the Lincoln Highway through Lancaster County to take her a meal, to share some time together, and then come back and work at the restaurant. Every day she would do it, and every day she went by each of those 40 Lincoln Highway markers. Can you imagine? Driving right through the city of Lancaster, across all the fields, across the Conestoga River, through Bridgeport, and just, I just get so excited with that idea that somebody would have that connection to drive back and forth across the county on the Lincoln Highway every single day because they had such a fond relationship with someone. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
Okay.
That's good.
And at the end of the program, if anyone wants to come up, take a closer look at the marker, get your picture taken with it, feel free. He'll make you pose, obviously, in a certain way, but it really is a neat project he put together. And again, it brings everything back to the Lincoln Highway, the connection between our two counties. So we just had to have him here, and of course to show off the marker as well. So as he said, yes, there are 4 Lincoln Highway markers left between York and Lancaster County. One he just mentioned that he said he measured, it still is there. I just saw it about a week or so ago in Columbia, okay, right kind of near the river. Next one is at 1341 West Market Street. And what's the name of the fire company? Somebody knows it. Isn't it in front of a fire company?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the name of it, Tom? That's okay. It's in front of a fire company, so, all right. Next one is on private property, okay? And the 4th one is, Home Township near Duckstown Road. So there are some out there still in our 2 counties that you can drive by, take a look at for yourself, and see, and take photos with. And it really is just one of the many remnants, not only that ties us together between 2 counties, but of Americana, of early transportation. So most of the markers that were in Lancaster County have been gone, or they were hit by a car and discarded or smashed. Lancaster history has one, but as far as one that you can actually see in the quote-unquote wild in Lancaster County, it's just that one in Columbia. And then there he is. So that was the picture of the day that, about a year ago now, Ben, I would say, more or less, when we met on a hot summer day out in Paradise, Lancaster County, to get that. And I guess that was probably towards the earliest days of when you were taking pictures, right? That was towards yeah. So, all right, next slide. All right, go for it.
You never know when you're going to be driving around seeing a man carrying a Lincoln Highway marker. How many of you knew that York County is considered the snack food capital of the world? Yeah, not the nation, the entire world. If you think about the iconic brands that have come out of York County, we have Snyder's of Hanover. Annie Ann's Pretzels was coming out of York County. We had Utz potato chips. It's just, there's so many brands iconic with York. The York peppermint patty. So, we really have a reputation in York County for good food. And I know Lancaster County likes to brag about their Amish-made baked goods and everything, but I mean, come on, an Utz potato chip, And you can just drive through and you can just smell the potato chips baking. Martin's potato chips. We have it all in York County. So we are the snack food capital of the entire world.
So we are in the pretzel belt, just so you all know. And who knew, right? Yes, it is a thing. It's a concentrate, as the panel says, it's a concentration of many snack food companies here in this region. So we're Dutch country pride, and like Tommy said, we're known for our snack foods, our baked goods, and pretzels. Which brings me to, of course, I had to bring Lidditz into the equation. 1861 is when the very first commercial pretzel bakery was opened by Julius Sturgis down on Main Street. I'm sure, raise your hand if you've taken the tour or have seen, okay, many of you. You can get still there. You can go in there and twist your own pretzel. They have a little gift shop. So Lidditz holds claim to, again, having opened the very first commercial pretzel bakery in America. Okay, so that's kind of a fun fact I had to bring into the program here. All right, so now something else I just had to bring into the program. Wilbur chocolate. Okay, obvious show of hands. Have you ever had Wilbur buds?
Of course.
Okay, so everyone keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Now, for those that don't have your hands up, Raise your hand if you would like to try a Wilbur Bud, because they're so much better than Hershey Kisses. Am I right? All right, that even got some applause. Right. So it actually predated the Hershey Kiss by many, many years. And one of the tales that I've heard, I don't know if it's true, I've heard it from different sources through the years, that when he was first developing this chocolate drop, which would go on to become known as a Kiss, Milton Hershey intentionally made his Hershey Kiss look like a Wilbur Bud, so people thought they were buying Wilbur Buds. That's the story I heard. I don't know, it has some validity to it, I'm not sure. But early 1900s is when they came to town. The building is still there. Rest assured, they are still making Wilbur chocolate in Lidditz. They haven't made Wilbur Buds in Lidditz for many, many years. This building, which was the prime factory on North Broad Street, is now condos, apartments. There's a food market there. The retail shop moved across the street, so yes, you can still buy Wilbur Buds in downtown Lidditz from Wilbur itself. I'm just so thankful. Everyone has their own opinion as to, what they did to the building. I am just personally so thankful that it wasn't demolished. That's my 2 cents for what it's worth. But they really did do a tremendous job with that building, and I'm so glad it was saved from demolition. So it now lives on a new life, and as I said, it's a hotel, and if you get a chance, they let you walk around the hotel, the lobby. Last I knew, they actually have, and I'm not kidding, the aroma of chocolate being pumped in from the lobby. So that, yeah.
Good marketing.
Good marketing. Yeah, yep.
Okay, well, we do have good chocolate in York County as well. So who has heard of Wolfgang Candy? It can't all be about Lancaster. I know we're in Lidditz, but... So Wolfgang Candy was founded in 1921, and the names of the founders are amazing. So there was Delphi Eli and Mima May Wolfgang. So that's a mouthful. And they founded Wolfgang Candy together, and they ran it out of a home in York County. So that was great. It was a very, down-home family business. And a fun fact about me is for the first 24 years of my life, I was allergic to chocolate. I had to go to the allergist, and they made me do a food challenge where they just slowly fed me the allergen 1 tablespoon at a time until they either got an allergic reaction out of me or I was totally fine. And knock on wood, at 24 years old, I was able to eat chocolate and promptly gained about 10 pounds. And then, like I mentioned before, it's not only Wolfgang Candy, but we have the York Peppermint Patty. Sadly, that was bought out by the Hershey Chocolate Company, and it's no longer made in York County, Pennsylvania. But it's actually the reason that I found out I was allergic to chocolate was because my grandpa used to feed me York Peppermint Patties when I went to his house, and I had an allergic reaction when I was 3 years old, and that's how we found out. But as soon as I could start eating chocolate again, I started eating peppermint patties. So they're too good, even if you're allergic. Just have the EpiPen ready. And then on a more serious topic, we're going to talk about the Underground Railroad in Lancaster and York County. So I know a lot of you have probably never even heard of Newberrytown before coming here today, but we have a great claim to fame. The Underground Railroad ran through Newberry Township, and Harriet Tubman actually stayed in a farmhouse in Newberry Township. One of my colleagues and I, we do videos called Hometown History, and one of the episodes that we did was about the Underground Railroad in York County, and we talked about the Baptist Farm. And that is now a privately owned farm in Newberry Township, so I'm not going to tell you what road it's on. I don't know if they'd really appreciate people coming up and taking photographs of their privately owned property. But it is still standing in York County, in Newberry Township, and this was a free black family that lived there and worked the land they farmed, and they helped escaped slaves seeking freedom. And the great thing about York County and Lancaster County were they were safe havens for free black people. And you have to remember that this was still during the time of the Fugitive Slave Act, so there were still people looking to collect bounties. So if they saw a black person, and if it happened that they weren't a free black person, it was a slave escaping slavery, they would take them and they would turn them in for a bounty. But if you were a free black person, you could live freely in York County and in Lancaster. But a lot of these people were trying to make their way farther north. The farther away you were from the South, the farther away you were from slavery and bondage.
Yeah. So several locations in Lancaster also were places where people moved around via the Underground Railroad. If you want to go to the next slide, getting back to Columbia, again, the western terminus of the Philadelphia and Columbia Railroad. As you can see here on the slide, there was like a hiding compartment, okay, to move them from place to place. We also know of another place out in Amish country, Beechdale Farms, out near, I guess it's maybe like a Leola address or New Holland area address. They hid slaves there in their basement. And you got to think, too, the timeline here. You know, these were many times plain people, Amish, Mennonites, that typically are pacifists and really don't want to get involved with anything, war or any kind of violence or anything like that. So they were really taking, they saw to do the right thing at the end of the day, but they decided to take them in and help them escape and help them move on farther north. So yeah, it's definitely, there's also an Underground Railroad walking tour of Lancaster that you can take. I would urge you to Google that if you want to learn more in terms of Lancaster and their parts of the Underground Railroad. Underneath the Marriott, there's a space there, like an excavation that they did underneath Thaddeus Stevens' house. There's some artifacts there that they recovered. That's on the walking tour, but anyone can go into the hotel, go down the 2 flights of steps, go the whole way down Sure Bend. You've been there, right? Yeah, it's. I promise you, it's worth a visit. It's free. You know, you could just kind of do it on your own and see some of the things they recovered. So, a lot of history having to do with the Underground Railroad in both of our areas.
And if you're interested in learning more about the Underground Railroad in York County, look up books by Scott Mingus. He's a local historian and author, and some of his books are probably actually here in the library, but Scott has written multiple books on the subject. He's a great historian. He talks a lot about the Civil War, but he also focuses on the Underground Railroad.
So, of course, we had to talk oldest houses, and we're going to start with Lancaster County, the Hans Herr House. Many of you have probably visited on a field trip. Yeah, so the Hans Herr House is still out there right near Willis Street, 1719, okay? And I learned a little interesting tidbit while I was doing research on the Hans Herr House. It's also, if you want to go to the next slide, please, thank you. It's also the oldest Mennonite meeting house in America, which, again, makes sense. A lot of plain people coming here during that time, but I didn't know that part of it until I delved into the history of the Hans Herr House. Another public historical site you can go. I believe there is a small fee, but it's certainly worth taking the drive out there to visit the Hans Herr House, which again is the oldest home standing in Lancaster County.
Okay, the oldest home in York County. So the York County History Center, they have a colonial complex, and in that complex, and you can visit it today and you can go for tours, are the Golden Plough Tavern and the General Horatio Gates home. So the tavern was built in 1741, and they have docents on hand that can take you through the tavern, and you can go on tours. They have a summer kitchen there. It's really great. And then the Horatio Gates home. So this was built in 1751. And these buildings are connected there in the colonial complex. And Horatio Gates lived there during the Second Continental Congress. So there's a lot of history available for you there. And the building contains wooden shingles, and that was rare in America at the time. So a shingled roof like that, that was something that you wouldn't often see. And it was probably because, making it for a general and it just being such a pivotal place to go in York County. And then we want to talk about a notable artist that came out of York County, and that's Lewis Miller. So he was creating works during the Civil War, and he was creating works that showed you what the typical life of a York Countian would look like. So being a reenactor with the 87th, he actually made a work of art that shows the grounds where the regiments would drill before they got sent off in the Civil War. So that's the top one that you're seeing right there, and that says Colonel George Hay, and so that was with the 87th and Captain Shaw. and they were training on the old York Fairgrounds in the summer of 1861 at the start of the Civil War. And then on your left, you have the young Lewis Miller and Joyce's Day visiting the self-sufficient Geiger family. So he was really showing you views of what typical life would be like. So he maybe wasn't the most fine artist. It wasn't very maybe like photo perfect lifelike photos or paintings, but this is showing you what a typical life would be like for a person living in York County during the Civil War.
And of course, Lancaster County, probably the most well-known artist, Charles Demuth, 1883 to 1935. That picture on the right is self-portrait. So when you hear the name Demuth, even if you don't know anything about his art, if you know anything about Lancaster history or Lancaster County history, you might think of the Demuth Tobacco Shop, which his family owned, and it was closed about 2010, I believe, if I have up there. Yeah, 2010. So it was the oldest tobacco shop in the United States, owned by the Demuth family. And like I said, they've been closed now for a while, but at the time it was the oldest in the United States. So I guess I knew that at one time, but I had forgotten that Lancaster County also was claimed to fame for the oldest shop of its kind like that in the nation. So yeah, it's really amazing the amount of kind of fun facts and connecting facts that we came up with while putting this program together. Yeah. Yeah. So, War of the Roses, here we go again, right? Okay. So, War of the Roses, we have two different teams. Obviously, there's the Phillies, there's the Harrisburg Senators. We have the Lancaster Barnstormers, okay, established in 2005. They play at Clipper Magazine Stadium. And do you want to talk about York here next? But before, I want to show you three superstars. You probably know these names that came from Lancaster that played for Major League: Tommy Herr, Bruce Sutter, and Gene Garber. Okay, raise your hand if you know those names. Maybe one of those guys are here today. I can't see, but
They came just to see you.
oh my gosh! Wow. So we had three Major League players from Lancaster County to go on to play Major League Baseball. They're all now retired. Fun fact about the Lancaster Barnstormers that we just talked about: Tommy Herr was the very first coach there too. So one of the many connections there.
And then in York, we have the York Revolution, which is just a perfect name for a baseball team out of York County. And that was established in 2006, and they play at People's Bank Park. And then I have a picture of Cannonball Charlie. Anytime a player hits a home run, he sets off a cannon, which is amazing. But if you don't like loud noises, it's probably not for you. But we're in the midst of a black powder shortage, and Cannonball Charlie has decided to hang up his cannon, and he's retiring. So we're losing one of our really great attractions here at the baseball stadium. But who knows, maybe, there's someone waiting in the wings to fire off the cannon after he retires. But he's a great attraction. He actually has a children's book about his characters, Cannonball Charlie, and he goes around to the local libraries in York County and does story time. He wears his Revolutionary War garb, and he talks to the kids, and they love it. So he's a really great attraction. And not to be outdone by Lancaster County, but we had a few MLB players in our day. And we had Greg Gross, and he is from Goldsboro, which is the town right by Newberrytown, and that's where 3 Mile Island is, if you know about TMI. And that's an old sign that you see when you come into Goldsboro, and it says, Home of Greg Gross, Sporting News and Baseball Digest, 1974 Baseball Rookie of the Year. And Greg Gross actually went to my high school, Redland High School. And then he played for the Phillies, the Astros, and the Cubs. He was an outfielder and a pinch hitter in his day. And I'm pretty sure he went on to coach. He doesn't really come home that often to Goldsboro, but it's really funny on the Newberrytown, Preserving the History of Newberrytown Facebook page. It's really like a claim to fame. I knew Greg Gross. I went to high school with Greg Gross. I know his mom. I know his cousin. I've talked to him a few times. Anytime he's in town, he looks me up. So, people really like to hang on to that. But baseball really is a big deal in York County, and for my high school, Redland High School, where I graduated from, we really have a great pool of young men coming up, and we actually just had someone last year from the graduating class get drafted into the MLB. So that was a huge deal. You know, we just love it. And if you're aware, we had the Redland boys minor league team, or Little League team, and they won the national championship at the Little League World Series. So on the news, ESPN didn't know where Redland was because Redland's not on a map. Redland's not a real place. It's in York County, but it's a conglomerate of Lewisberry, Goldsboro, Edders, Newberrytown, Fairview Township, Newberry Township. So they said that they were from Lewisberry, which is where the coach was from, but there's only 300 people that live in Lewisberry. So they wanted to know, how did Lewisberry, a town of 300 people, field a national championship team? And I want to know how they did it too, because they didn't. Those boys were from a couple different towns, but they were amazing, and some of those boys had parents that played in the major leagues or were stars when they were in high school or college. So we're really turning out some great baseball players. So, you know, maybe in 10, 20 years, if you come back for another presentation that we do, I'll have more people than just Greg Gross to talk about. And there are others, but, you know, it's nice to have a little bit of a hometown hero. You know, everyone likes to talk about how they have his rookie card or they have his playing card and an autograph from him. So it's just a nice little touch. So, you know, Corey had a few more players to talk about, but I think we can stick with Greg Gross for York County.
So just to wrap up here, I mentioned this at the top of the program. If you're on social media and if you love local history, whether it's York or Lancaster or Newberrytown or Lidditz, please consider following our two Facebook groups that we run, Preserving the History of Newberrytown or Remember When in Lidditz. And I just want to say again, I mean, all these things that we talked about are just small things that our two counties have in common. And it's great that we talk about that and have some fun and have some laughs. But I think the bigger thing here is that we had two area historians coming together, joining forces, talking about our shared interests, getting you here too, who we can't thank enough. Just, you know, as a powwow for local history. And, you know, we love this stuff as much as you guys. So not only is it a program where you learn different things, a lot of things you may not have known before, but it really is a pep rally for local history here in central Pennsylvania. So that's all we have. Again, we could go on and on talking about similarities. We just wanted to hit a lot of the main things and some of the fun things along the way as well. So please stick around. Make sure you check out the Lincoln Highway marker, some of the handouts on the table, and we'll be happy to chat with you, try to answer your questions. If you have a local history question, we can do that. But I just want to, on behalf of Domi, I just want to thank each and every one of you and those on the live stream watching for coming out and taking part in this special program. And we hope to do, with any luck, more of these in the future. So thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.